All right, good afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on where you may be. Thank you for standing by, and welcome to today's Channel Focus Community Webinar. Today's topic is going to be Cracking the Channel Management Code, results from CSO Insights 2016 Channel Research Study. Today our presenters will discuss the latest research findings from CSO Insights Channel Sales Study and a fresh perspective on channel sales best practices. All phone lines are currently in a listen-only mode, and later there will be a question and answer session with additional instructions being given at that time. You may ask a question at any time during the presentation using the chat window located in the control panel, and all your chat questions will be answered at the end of the presentation with the rest of the Q&A. Today's session is being recorded, and everyone on the call will get a copy of the recording and today's slides. Now I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Greg Nutter has over 25 years of sales, marketing, channel, and consulting experience, and he has developed and implemented a wide variety of highly successful strategies and programs aimed at building and enhancing the performance of direct sales, channel sales, telephone sales, and other revenue-enabling relationships. As Channel Enablers Executive Director, Greg is responsible for providing global leadership for the Channel Enablers brand and leads the division's efforts in strategy, business development, product management, program development, and channel management. And we also have Barry Traylor, who is co-founder and research principal of CSO Insights, a sales effectiveness research and benchmarking firm, now a division of Miller Heiman Group. In addition to more than 30 years of professional selling experience, Barry has also been president of Miller Heiman, a respected sales training firm, and Goldmine, a well-known CRM application. Barry has conducted seminars with hundreds of companies, including HP, Corning, Oracle, and Hitachi Data Systems, and has been a keynote speaker at dozens of sales events presenting sales mastery. Greg, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Sam. And welcome to everyone. A little bit about Channel Enablers. Channel Enablers was established in 1999 and became one of the leading global authorities in helping vendors optimize their channel sales capabilities. Our initial focus was in the high-tech industry, which is heavily dependent on channels, not just to sell their products, but also to complete the whole solution. More recently, we've been working with both manufacturing and service providers, including banking, insurance, and other financial companies, healthcare, pharmaceutical, and a wide range of non-high-tech manufacturers. In 2011, we were acquired by the Miller Heiman Group, and we form a key part of their Be Ready solution set, where we continue to help companies transform their channel skills, processes, and programs into a source of competitive advantage. Barry, do you want to tell us a little bit about CSO Insights?
Sure. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Glad to be here as well. As mentioned, I co-founded CSO Insights with Jim Dickey back in 2002. He had actually started doing research principally on CRM back in 1994. He and I teamed up in 2002, and we're doing independent research on B2B sales effectiveness in several areas. And as mentioned, not unlike Channel Enablers, we were also acquired 2 years ago and are now the research division of Miller Heiman Group. So glad to be here.
Great, thanks, Barry. So let's review the topics that we want to discuss today. First thing we want to highlight our research study, and we'll have Barry give you some background on the study, the objectives, and a quick overview of some of the participants. Then I want to highlight some of the current findings from the report, such as the growth in the channel, the influence the channel is having, and particularly some of the issues that vendors are experiencing with their channel partners. From there, we'll do a bit of a deeper dive on two important issues, channel management skills and channel management processes. There, we'll point out key gaps that are impacting channel sales performance. Lastly, we'll wrap things up and suggest some next step actions that we think you should consider. So let's begin. Channel Enablers over the years has done a lot of different studies, and this particular study is quite different. A lot of the research that we do is done for individual clients, where we benchmark their specific channel competencies against 7 key performance areas. But Barry, tell us about this study and how it's perhaps quite a bit different.
Well, it is different. It's a new area for us. We've been covering various aspects of sales performance, demographics, sales management, sales compensation performance management. But we always wanted to take a look at channel sales, and Channel Enablers actually had conducted their first survey back in 2012 and promised to do it every 2 years again in 2014. And in 2016, we teamed up with them and had about 180 firms participate. What we were really looking at was not surveying channel partners, but firms that manage and sell through channels. So, for example, we didn't interview, 1,000 or look for participation from 1,000 Cisco distributors or 15,000 Microsoft partners and distributors. What we were looking for were responses from the Cisco folks that manage the channel, from Microsoft folks who manage the channel, and so on. So we're looking for the people in their companies that manage channel relationships as opposed to channel partners per se. And specifically, what we wanted to know is, in addition to some of just the demographic questions, what are the channel management skills and processes? What channel management programs do they have, and what supporting infrastructure do they provide? So why don't we take a look at one of the first charts and talk a little bit about those folks that did participate. You can see here in the upper left, about 43%, the largest single segment, were manufacturing firms. That's not surprising when you think that manufacturers' reps are, kind of where channel in many cases started. Services is a growing segment, almost 30% were services companies, and the remainder just fell under the other category. In terms of revenue, you can see just over a quarter of folks, pretty small, under 10 million, and then growing from 10 to 50 million, 51 to 250 million. And just over a third, about a third of the folks were greater than $1 billion in annual revenue. Move up to the upper right, you can see 38.5% for North America, another quarter in EMEA, 19% in Asia, and much smaller participation from Australia, New Zealand, and finally 11% down in Latin America. And then in the lower right-hand quadrant here, you can see the roles, principally channel sales management, which is exactly what I was describing and who we'd expect to see. I think corporate executives, particularly in the smaller companies, you see about 20% of the respondents were corporate executives, and then drops down to channel sales and so on down the line. So a great cross-section in terms of size of companies, geographic distribution, and roles. So pretty good. Anyway, what we wanted to do was take a look at the current state of channel sales. But before we get into that, Greg, I think you've got a slide on the evolution of channel sales and how we got to today's current state.
Sure. Thanks, Barry. Here are some statistics that we often like to point to regarding the influence that channel has had on our companies. As you can see from this graph, about 30 years ago, indirect channels played a much smaller role when it came to selling our products. But since then, their share of revenue has continued to grow today, where, at this point, 40 to 70% of global revenue is either directly sold or influenced by a third-party channel. As you mentioned earlier, high tech has always been strong in channels, and you can see that it continues to grow rapidly. Since 2010, we're seeing 9 to 10% annual growth in high tech, but other industries such as financial services and manufacturing are growing rapidly as well. Barry, how does this compare to what you found in the study?
Well, let's jump into it. If you want to draw up the first slide, here we go. You can see we're right in the middle of the curve that you were showing, somewhere between 40 and 70%. And, that also varies by region. So I think in North America, probably favoring the higher end of that scale. Down in Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Latin America, it may be lower. But when we look across all of them, here's the distribution we see. Revenues generated by channel partners as a percentage of total company revenue. And let me just, we're going to be looking at a few charts like this, so let me orient you with kind of curious because we're talking about percentages of percentages. if you look at sort of that lime green wedge there at sort of the 1 o'clock position, 10% of companies, 10.1% of survey respondents said that less than 10% of their total company revenue is generated by channel partners, and so on up the line. 20%, 20.2% said between 10 and 25% of their revenues were generated by channel partners, and so on as you work your way around the segments there. The weighted average across all of these, you can see sort of that rose segment up at the 10 o'clock position, just under 20% said that, or just maybe I should say almost 1 in 5 respondents said greater than 90% of the revenue is generated by channel partners. The weighted average across all of these is 49%, so right in the middle of that span that you were talking about, 40 to 70%. Let's take a look at the revenues, how they've changed over the past 2 years. Here on the left, you can see about 12% said channel revenues have been decreasing, and another 21, almost 22% said they remain the same. And from there, you can see it's increasing 1 to 5%. Again, about 1 in 5 firms said increasing 6 to 10%, or have increased over the last 2 years, all the way up to more than 30%. Again, when you look at the weighted average, we're talking about a 7.6% increase when you composite all of these, or aggregate all of these. Over the last 2 years, it's grown about 7.5%. And on the right here, when we talk about, well, how is the network changing, that's looking at revenue contribution. What about change in the network itself? 6.4% say they're planning for it to decrease in the coming year, and 19% saying it's about the same, and from there you can see growing 1 to 5%, 6 to 10. The largest single segment growing 11 to 20%, 18.3% of respondents said that. And when we, average all of those, aggregate those, and look at a weighted average, the projected growth over the next 12 months in terms of partner network size is 11.2%. So we can see an increase. It's growing over time. We can see that it's grown over the last 2 years in terms of revenue contribution and the size of the network, and maybe reliance on partners also growing at a pretty good clip.
Great. Barry, 5 years ago, I would talk to companies and they would tell me that they have a 50-50 or 60-40 direct versus channel split. Today, a lot of the organizations tell me that either 100% of their channel or that's their near-term goal. More and more of their revenue they want to put through the channel. And it's not just high tech. It's all the other companies, financial services, healthcare, manufacturer, making significant investments on how to manage the channel more effectively by doing more than providing product information. And so when I look at this data, I think about the point that today there's really 2 primary sources of competitive advantage. It's your product or it's your channel strategy. And the thing that's important is the channel strategy is much more leverageable. Products can be easily and quickly copied and commoditized, while a company's partner network is much harder to replicate. So Barry, what kind of changes are we seeing in the channel sales side of these organizations?
Well, we've been cataloging that as well over the last few years, and let me just echo what you've said. And one of our favorite expressions we've been saying for years, you're saying there are 2 ways to differentiate: what you sell and how you sell. And we increasingly feel that in terms of maintaining a sustainable competitive advantage, how you sell is a bigger differentiator. Having said that, there are lots of things that are changing. This isn't news to anybody. What is news is sort of the rate of change and the amount of change that's actually impacting sales organizations today, and that's whether they're direct, or in this case, specifically about. No surprise here, the number one increase is customer expectations. The whole shift in power from sellers to buyers, buyers being more informed, doing their homework online. Whether you think the number is 57 or 62 or 85 or 90% of the buyer's journey, customer's journey is over before they ever talk to a sales rep. Whatever the number is, we know that people are doing a lot more homework and have much higher expectations of the people calling on them when they do in fact meet. You can see, and that's the dark bar here, increasing noticeably, increasing significantly. 52% folks said that they are seeing that in customer expectations. Another 45% seeing noticeable or significant increases in competitive activity, and so on down the line. Complexity of the product line, breadth of the product line, changes in the customer marketplace, rate of new product introductions. All of these things are impacting sales, ability to sell. And I think the question that the folks on the call today need to be asking themselves is, what effect are these changes having on your channel partners, and specifically, how are they keeping up with those changes? If we look at the next slide here, in terms of issues and specifically the percentage of reps meeting or beating quota, again talking about percentages, I think everybody's familiar now. 26.7% said less than 25% of their partners met or exceeded their revenue target. And you can see, so on up the line, 25 to 35%, 36 to 45%. The best segment was 25 to 35%, was 14%. Not the best. The largest single segment was there. 10.5% said 46 to 55% of their partners made a plan. Again, overall, the number everybody's basically interested in is the aggregated average, I think. 38%. 38% of partners actually met or exceeded their revenue target. And one of the questions we ask of direct sellers, we've been asking in our sales performance optimization study for the last several years, is what percentage of revenue is contributed by your top 20% of reps? And it's not the 80-20 rule that most people, automatically think of Pareto's ratio, but it's 60%. So 20% of reps generate 60% of the revenue, and so that's a 3x multiplier, and 80% of the reps generate 40% of the revenue. And you can see that playing out here. If the average is 38% overall, 80% delivering 40% of the revenue, or roughly, or not roughly, a 0.5 multiplier. So you've got 3x, 0.5x. The productive folks are 6 times more productive, 6 times more effective in their selling efforts. And the thing you have to ask yourself is, what do those folks know that the majority do not know? What do they do that the majority of the folks are not doing? And can we improve that? And that's really, I think, the so what of this slide is the 38% across the boards really shows there's plenty of room for improvement. And the survey data also tells us there are some people who figured out how to do it.
Yeah, good point, Barry. Many of the clients I talk to share very similar findings, where a large percentage of their channel revenues are driven by small number of their partners. The classic, 80-20, or in this case, 60-20 rule. In some of our skill development programs, we encourage channel managers to segment their partners by their willingness to invest in your channel program, and then prioritize their management time on developing those with the highest return on investment. Typically, we see too much time being spent on the high-performing partners, which is kind of counterintuitive, but these are partners who are going to succeed with or without you. And not enough time is being spent on partners that need to be managed to success. So it's clear to have an important strategy when it comes to which partners do I spend time on. Barry, what other channel issues did the research study uncover?
Well, right in line with this question of who are you going to invest in and how are you going to invest is when we talk about growing the network is bringing new partners up to speed. Another issue is the time it takes to get folks to full productivity. And you can see here, and this is actually, you can't see it here, the less than 3 months. Used to be, took less than a quarter to get folks fully productive. Today, only 7.3%. 7% of folks are saying their folks are fully productive in a quarter or less. That number has been shrinking over time. Similarly, 3 to 6 months, 1 in 5 firms fall into that category, and then you can see it starts to grow. 7 to 9 months, another 1 in 5, 10 to 12 months. And look, the biggest single segment, more than a quarter of firms say it takes more than a year. The weighted average across all of these is 10 months. Okay, so we're sitting here on March 14th, and what that means is if you recruit, hire, and train, recruit and brought on board today a new partner, they would be fully productive next year, which is, you know, an enormous challenge. And then when we look at sales enablement services and who those are offered to, I think there's some clues as to why maybe it's taking so long.
Yeah, I don't think anyone on the phone today or on our webinar today would argue with the fact that time to productivity is getting longer. And if you look back at the issues that you highlighted just earlier, Barry, you know, we see products becoming complex, but our selling process is becoming complex. And, you know, training on product knowledge is relatively easy. Training on how to sell when customer expectations are high and competition is more varied is much, much harder. Many of the companies we work with have rock-solid enablement programs, particularly in areas like product and pre-sales, technical training, sales materials. However, the gap, and if you look at the right-hand side here, is really in the field, is what I call in-the-field enablement. It's around areas such as opportunity management and deal coaching. If you look at the top elements, those tend to be more standardized programs, maybe e-learning or structured process. But the ones on the bottom, they require on-the-job, in the field enablement. And I think the reason we're seeing this is for a couple of reasons. Channel managers typically have a sales background, and they have been trained to be managers, and it's a management job that requires coaching and influencing the behaviors of partner sales teams or even their sales management. And secondly, when vendors have a direct sales force that sells with partners, they also tend not to have the necessary training to effectively leverage the channel, and they don't see themselves as playing a key role in that partner's enablement. So not addressing this gap means that partners need to figure out the details of managing deals, on managing this change all by themselves, which either means longer time to productivity, or worse, they simply give up. So I think we had one other key issue that we wanted to highlight, so I'm going to turn it back to Barry to talk about this.
Sure, and that's just the flip side of bringing new folks on board is people who are leaving you. And rep turnover, we're seeing this year voluntary turnover, about 1 in 8, 12.5%, and involuntary turnover, another 11%. So almost 25% per year turnover. And let's not forget, earlier we were talking about 11.2% projected growth in the network. So that's, you know, looking at more than a third, you know, almost 36% of channel either needing to be replaced or added to, and that being compounded by the fact that it's taking so long to get folks up to speed. It just becomes this huge uphill grind all the time. And, you know, there's some things you can do about that, but there are lots of things that are working against you. You know, all of those changes are making it, you know, harder and harder to get folks up to speed and fully, you know, conversant and fluent, both in terms of product and also, you know, application industry specifics. And then you start losing folks. It's like, man, this is a double whammy. So, you know, part of it is how do we hang on to folks, and when you do, how do we get more out of them? That's the whole notion of enablement that we're really trying to get to here.
Yeah, I think the bottom line in this slide is that, you know, channel sales turnover is expensive, and it's an absolutely a real cost. as the costs not only to recruit and onboard are high, but the big cost is lost opportunities. We find there's lots of reasons why channel partnerships fail, and I could give you half a dozen right now, but many of them are associated with weak partner management skills and inconsistent partner management processes. You and I were talking a few weeks back about some recent research that points out that people join companies, but they quit managers. How do you think this applies in this situation?
Well, I think that it absolutely applies, and everyone's excited, when you come on board, whether, new hire, new partner, whatever, everybody's, kind of in their honeymoon period, excited about it, but then you actually hit, the hard work of making these things happen, and you run into, the challenges and complexities and new systems and so on, and I think, all of that, is, you mentioned about the additional costs, the recruitment, hiring, and training. But let's face it, people don't leave because they're being wildly successful. So, there's the cost of territories that either were uncovered or underperforming, whether people took off on their own or you had to cut them loose. All of this stuff is like the clock just keeps ticking, the pages on the calendar keep turning, and it's like, man, where's this time going? And that's how you wind up with like 38% of reps, meeting or beating quota. It's like, we got to do better. And I think doing better means doing better for your folks. And as you've been pointing out, I think what we're going to get to, in the webinar here, is it's not just about, training, product training, and then how you doing, what have you got for me, but really talking about how do you manage this, and what does managing the channel look like? And I think that, when we get into the specifics of that, that's where there's some real insights to offer.
Great.
So why don't we jump into that?
So let's switch gears a little bit from issues to maybe some of the causes. And the first thing we wanted to drill down on is channel management skills. But before I talk about the channel management skills that we think are gaps or areas that we need to improve on, what I wanted to do is step back and say, what's different about being a channel manager? Why are channel managers or our channel managers' skills different than what a typical successful direct sales rep needs to have? So if you look at this slide, on the left here, we talk about, what a direct salesperson is normally focused on. And that's primarily two things: sales cycle management and account management. And a lot of what they do on a day-to-day basis is managing a client through these four boxes, these four stages. I want to prospect and qualify a customer. I want to investigate and educate them on my offering. I want to develop a solution, propose it, and position it against alternatives. And lastly, I want to gain commitment and close. So pretty typical, and I don't think there's many people that don't understand these four stages. And the skills that are required to support those four stages are highlighted above: prospecting skills, questioning skills, call planning skills, executive level selling, negotiating, close. And that's what a lot of successful salespeople have. However, if you look at channel management competencies, they're different. And they're different for one main reason: they manage a different life cycle. Channel managers are focused on building channel sales capacity and capability. And although sometimes they want to get in and coach a channel partner on sales cycle and account management, that should not be their day-to-day job. It starts with market mapping. What do we have in our territory? What kinds of clients? What kinds of solutions? What kinds of partners do we need to take those solutions to those customers? And then once we've defined a partner profile, we want to recruit those partners, screen them, and sell them on the opportunity. We need to enable those partners. Some of it is done corporately, but a lot of it, as we talked about earlier, is done in the field, particularly around the sales process. And lastly, we need to manage that partner on a day-to-day basis, getting them to continue to invest, to change their certain behaviors that are more successful, and managing sometimes upwards into our program, and sometimes down or transitioning them out. And you can see above we have different skills that are required. partner planning, partner relationship management, market analysis, enablement plan development and management, coaching, facilitation. So a lot more management style skills rather than block and tackle selling skills.
Well, Greg,
So
I think the slide, the two labels you have here pretty well spell it out. It's like direct sales versus manager skills. And, it's the same thing you see in direct sales. The best sales reps don't make the best managers necessarily, because now you're having to do through others. That's what management is about, is this influence and managing other folks' efforts rather than doing yourself. And I think, what you're saying here in terms of influencing, managing, planning, those are all important skills, not necessarily skills that the talented salespeople, bring to the party naturally.
Yep, good point. And I think if I look at it, I had to summarize a direct sales competency in one word, one key skill. It's control. It's about controlling the sales cycle, controlling the stages. But in channel management, it's all about leverage. And you hit it on the head, Barry. It's about getting more done through other people than what you could do yourself. Great ad.
Yep.
So to support this difference in competencies, Channel Enablers, we built this channel manager competency model. We define 5 buckets of skills, processes, knowledge that a channel manager needs to have to be competent to manage a partner through those 4 stages. Channel lifecycle management, understanding the stages, the steps, the process to move a partner from identifying that we need one to managing that partner to success. Influencing skills, which are similar to selling skills, but they're different. You're not selling your product to that partner. You're trying to get that partner to invest, to change behaviors, to develop relationships. Just like your manager doesn't come in and sell you all the time, but they do influence your behaviors and how you spend your time. Partnership planning. Many organizations have recognized that as a key enabler to scale a partner, yet most report that they do it poorly or not at all. Channel business acumen. Being able to have a business level conversation with a senior executive at one of your partners to talk about things like cash flow, business valuation, about days outstanding, rather than how good my product is and where it sits on Gartner's Magic Quadrant. And lastly, being a virtual sales management, and Barry just talked about that earlier, being able to demonstrate true management skills, but to manage a team that does not work for you, that you cannot fire, that you have to coach, facilitate, and lead. And that's a very complex skill.
Well, so when people are sitting here hearing this stuff from you, Greg, I'm sure they're sitting there thinking, I wonder how we deal with that. And as it turns out, that's exactly what we surveyed in the response. So if you look at this slide, numbers 2, 3, and 4, influencing, planning, and business acumen, we did a deep dive in those. And here's what the survey respondents told us. Number 1, the ability for our sales management, our sales managers, to effectively build trusted business relationships and effectively communicate the need to change and invest. So all of this change that we're talking about, impacting everybody all the time, it's happening. How effective are our channel managers at communicating that and the need to invest? That was the highest scoring, and it was 36% that said they either agree or strongly agree that our channel sales professionals are able to do that. And it's, as they say, all downhill from there. The ability to effectively diagnose partner priorities, okay? 35% said they agree or strongly agree that their folks can do that, which means 65%, 2/3 of the folks said, yeah, we're really not able to do that. And you go on down the line, effectively diagnose and adjust based on the partner's communication style. Okay, maybe, maybe not. You can see it falls off. to effectively, this one really got me, the ability of our channel sales folks to effectively diagnose partner priorities. Look at this, less than 30% agreed or strongly agreed with that. 70% were on the other half of the scale. So man, it's just screaming for attention here to say, you know, help me here and improve your ability to influence, because you can't just direct, you've got to influence. And this last one, the ability to articulate and identify key stakeholders. Okay. Everybody knows that's part of the sales game, and yet, you know, it's one of the lowest ranking. You know, basically a quarter of folks are doing that with their partners. Moving on to the next one, we talk about partnership planning. Same deal. 45% say agree or strongly agree that our folks can facilitate a joint planning session. You know, jumping down, 36% create an overall development strategy. 25% are saying, you know, that they can identify the best metrics to measure partnership performance. One of the things Peter Drucker said a long time ago was the problem with management is they're measuring the wrong things. And here you can see basically 3/4 of folks are saying our sales professional, you know, can't identify the best metrics to measure our partnership performance. Man, that's, you know, that's really an indictment. And then, you know, the last part about building smart, you know, quarterly action plans. And, you know, if you want to throw another log on the fire, when you look at business acumen, which is the last one, you know, I know we're just throwing a lot of numbers here, but if you can just get an appreciation for sort of how much room there is for improvement here, 36% say they can describe the key partner success measures. I mean, that means, again, almost 2/3 can't. 1/3 can articulate the partner's business drivers, which is, you know, huge. And everybody knows when you're calling on folks today, the number one question they ask is, what do you know about us? Number 2 is, what do you know about our business? And number 3 is, how can you help us be more competitive in our industry? And, you know, it's like table stakes now when you're going into calls to be able to understand what, you know, what's going to impact these guys, what's driving their business. And here we're seeing basically 2/3 can't articulate that. And finally, 30% understand our current market economic trends and what that means to different partners and channel types. You know, again, these are huge areas for improvement, and I think that if we go back to your comment a couple minutes ago, people join companies but they quit managers. These are the things that people want to hear about, want to know that the person who's managing them, you know, that they're reporting to has some appreciation, some value add, and these numbers are really, well, there's plenty of room for improvement. Let me just put it that way.
So, you know, you'd be looking at this, and, right, you'd be looking at this and you might be asking yourself, well, why is this happening? Why does this occur? And, you know, we talked about this just a few moments ago. Most people who are channel managers have one of two different kinds of backgrounds. Either they're strong on product, so they've got deep product knowledge, or they come from direct sales. And neither background, as we just recently talked about, really fully prepares you for the task of being a manager of resellers. Just like being a sales rep doesn't fully prepare you to be a manager of salespeople. Secondly, very few of them have any form of formal channel training. I'm going to steal one of Barry's other slides. This is one that CSO Insights that came from another study they did on sales enablement. And it talks to companies who have invested in a sales enablement function. So they formalized at least a person and sometimes a department whose only purpose is to enable their sales team. Okay? So these are organizations that are serious about enabling the sales group. They're not going to leave it to chance. However, if you look at the bottom down here, only 1/3 of organizations who've made this investment in sales enablement role provide any kind of channel personnel training. And in my experience, most of it is either product or direct sales oriented. And so I ask a question, or I answer it, no wonder channel managers struggle to excel in this role. So let's pause for a moment. Let's stand back at some of the stuff we've gone through, and I want to put some questions out there that that we suggest you should be asking yourself about your company's channel management skills. The first one is, how channel skilled are your teams? And how do you really know? Have your channel managers received training? What about the direct inside sales? Have they been taught how to play nicely with the channel, to leverage the channel? And what about corporate functions like marketing and finance and product areas? How well do they understand the impacts of their actions on the channel? Secondly, is field level channel competency impacting your reseller performance? We looked at areas like revenue achievement and saw only 38% of partners achieve plan. But time to productivity, is it slowing down the time that it takes to get your partners productive? Or is it adding to your turnover of 25% or sometimes greater? Thirdly, if you do see a gap, how are you going to address it? How are you going to increase and develop those greater channel skills? Areas like influencing, planning, business acumen. Develop common language and understanding across your whole organization. How are you going to engage management, the people that manage your sales teams and manage those channel managers, to coach and drive adoption of these new skills and provide ongoing reinforcement? And what expertise do you have within your organization or outside that you can draw on to help you make this journey? So now I want to switch to our second key topic area, which is channel management processes. We all know that channel management is highly process-oriented. Channel success is all about developing and consistently deploying processes that are both repeatable and scalable. So we wanted to explore this area as well. So Barry, tell us about the findings as it relates to field-level channel management processes.
Well, you talked about leverage, and the words you just used are, scalable, repeatable. That's where leverage comes from, and that's where process comes in, repeatable, scalable processes. We've been tracking sales process now for over a decade, and the numbers are completely consistent over time, and we look at both a level of process implementation, which we're going to talk about here, and level of relationship, which we'll talk about next. And we've defined 4 levels of random. Random process, basically everybody's doing their own thing. If you've got 20 reps, you've got 21 sales processes, what each of them thinks they need to do to close the deal, plus whatever sales management thinks they should be doing. So that's random. You can see 15% of respondents said that's where they fall. Another third have an informal process, which is we've documented our sales process. Reps are exposed to it. They're expected to use it, but there's no monitoring of that. There's no reinforcement. There's no enforcement. The flip side of that, another third, is formal process, where it's the way we do business around here. People say it's our Bible, our SOP. And it's documented, it's reinforced, it's enforced, we measure it, and folks with formal sales process tend to be very good at reacting to changes because they start to see things aren't working as well as they were. The only thing that's wrong with that is they're reacting to change, which brings us to dynamic process. Just under 19.5% say that they are dynamic process, which is all of those things, documented, everybody's using it, we reinforce and enforce the use of it, but what they also bring to the party are analytics. And so they're not just reacting to change, but they're anticipating change. They're constantly asking the question, what's changed? What's changed? They look at rep versus rep, area versus area, region versus region, year over year, period versus competitors. They're constantly running the numbers, or what one channel partner said, running the trap lines just to see what I can learn, from the signals that I'm getting and the clues that are being left behind. That's dynamic process. So you can see 15% informal is the highest. And what I have found in in workshops and seminars with groups when I'm presenting this, people generally say, yeah, I think we're right on the, sort of right between informal and formal. I think we're formal, but yeah, maybe not. And when we start really, drilling down, okay, are you consistent? Are you rigorous? Do you, use the vocabulary and have tools that are consistently, making visible? Yeah, maybe not so much. You see, my guess is that if we applied those kinds of rigor to some of these definitions, you might see random grow up to maybe 20% and informal grow all the way to 40 or 45%. I've seen people really back off of their stand on formal when you ask how rigorous and consistent they are. The other thing we look at is levels of relationship, and you can be viewed as one of many. We call that the vendor level. Another step up is preferred supplier, and you can see the two of those segments make up, almost 60% of when we show this as a pyramid. The center of gravity is right between the preferred supplier and solutions consultant. 25% say, yeah, we're one of many. Another third say we're a preferred supplier. 8.5% say they're solutions consultants. And the difference here is vendors talk about their products and services. Preferred suppliers still talking about their products and services, but they have some track record of delivery, keeping their promises, and they really understand how people use their products and services. What you see as you start to slide into solutions consultants is now they're talking about the customer and the customer's customer. They're talking about the end user's business and how we understand that, how our products and services, yeah, that's what we have to sell, but here's how they impact you. Another level up, strategic contributors, how those things can help you be more competitive within your industry. And you can see pretty even split here, and actually higher numbers than I would have expected. 16.3% strategic contributors, 16.3% trusted partner. What we see in direct sales organizations, have seen over the years, is about 10% actually being trusted partner, trusted advisor, where you may be helping them choose other vendors and people they're going to do business with. Very high level of play. So, okay, that's nice, but does it really make any difference? And the answer is, well, yeah. You can see if we, here you have the 5 levels from bottom to top: vendor, preferred supplier, consultant, contributor, partner. Look at the revenue attainment. And again, these are from the channel folks that we were surveying, 180 firms. 53.5%, 42.5%, 41, 34, all the way down to sub 30. That's a huge spread, and it really, and again, I'm only repeating myself, but the data has been completely consistent. When you go to this next slide, Greg, we put these in a matrix back in 2006, and we've got the levels of process implementation on the horizontal axis. You'll see them there. The 5 levels of relationship on the vertical axis, and year over year. The first time we presented this, we were published in the Harvard Business Review back in 2006, and the data has been completely consistent for every year since. As you move from lower left to upper right, things get better. And the 4 metrics we use to define these are the overall revenue attainment, the percentage of reps meeting, beating quota, outcome of forecast deals or forecast accuracy, and rep turnover. And all of those improve as you move over and up. It's just compelling. Let me just say that it's compelling and completely consistent, and has been for more than a decade now.
And we get a lot of companies who come to us and say, we get this, we understand that the more process-oriented we are, the better performance we can achieve, and they ask us, so how can you help us? One of the things we've done with a few of our companies, clients, is we help them develop something called the Channel Field Guide. In direct sales, you look back, it's fairly intuitive of what a direct sales rep does, taking a customer from identifying them to closing. But a lot of channel managers don't have that same kind of roadmap to follow. So we developed this field guide, some will call it a playbook. And what it does is it brings together all of the programs, processes, tools into a resource that allows channel managers to manage their partners through these 5 stages. It's also really key for their management. Instead of just asking, what kind of revenue did you get today? What deals did you get? What did you close? Which is important. Don't get me wrong, revenue is important. But looking at, again, are we building channel capability? Are we building channel capacity? What kinds of things are we doing to affect those things? Because those are the things that affect our long-term growth rather than did we get this one deal today. So let's pause again for a moment and put some questions to you that you should be asking yourself about your own company's channel management processes. First, how mature are your field level channel management processes? And again, how do you know? As Barry talked a few moments ago, have you had somebody really drill down on how well they're documented? Are they enforced? Are they regularly measured, reviewed, and revised? How do those channel management processes impact your partner's perception of your companies? Companies that are not viewed highly won't invest, won't take the time to, in areas like enablement, won't promote your product over their others. And is it impacting your overall channel performance? If so, what's your plan? How are you going to move to higher levels of process maturity? How are you going to put a process in place and manage that process to improve perceptions of your partner perceptions and overall performance? And lastly, what expertise do you have that you can draw on? Who else do you know who's done this, who's implemented this, who's made this a success? Okay, so we're just about out of time, so we're going to quickly wrap up, make some quick recommendations, and then open it for some questions. So first, we started by sharing a few findings around channel current state. We talked about the channel share of global revenues, how it continues to grow, and it's growing in all industries and markets, not just high tech. We also talked about rapid changes in our selling environment, how partner performance is becoming more inconsistent, enablement times are increasing, and channel turnover is an increasingly costly issue. Then we talked about channel management skills and how, to be effective, they need to be different from what we expect of our direct sales teams. And through our research, we discovered gaps, significant gaps in influencing partner planning and channel business acumen, gaps that we believe can and do impact revenue achievement, time to productivity, and partner turnover. And lastly, we highlighted channel process maturity when it comes to engaging our channel partners and how it impacts their perception of our organization and in turn, their willingness to invest and their revenue achievement. So what recommendations can we leave you with? Well, we kind of talked about those quickly during the questions we asked, but let me highlight those again. First, assess your current state. What are you seeing in the channel? Is your channel attaining, what's your channel target attainment? Is everyone getting close to plan? Do you have that 80-20 rule? Or is it more like 90-10 that I've seen from some of our clients? Is your time to productivity increasing? And what's happening with your channel partner turnover? Then I suggest you evaluate your channel skills. Are they playing a role in impacting that sales performance? And if so, do you have a plan in place? And I recommend that you consider putting a plan in place to develop those skills. And lastly, how mature are your channel management processes? As Barry pointed out, are they really documented? Are they really built into sales management cadence? Are they reviewed, enforced, evaluated, and regularly revised? And if not, what's your plan here? Barry, and I'm going to toss it back to you to wrap this up and say, do you have any final comments and forward-looking perspectives for our participants today?
Well, I do. I think in terms of some of the other slides, Sam said at the outset, everybody can get a copy of the slides. I think you may want to use those as a checklist and just see, kind of where you think you either fall on these charts, where some of the gaps are in your own organization. And the other thing I always like to say when we look at the SRP matrix, the sales relationship process matrix, is, yeah, you want to move to the upper right. It's easier to move over than it is to move up. And the reason is because it's fully within your hands. Okay, implementing process is fully within your own organization. And so it, you have the buyer on the relationship side. You can't as directly impact that. So we always suggest moving over and then moving up. And so some of the skills of business acumen, partnership planning, influence that you're talking about and have been talking about this morning, Greg, I think are all things that can help channel managers help their channel partners to higher levels of sales process implementation. That would be my recommendation.
Right. Thanks, Barry. So let's, Sam, I'm going to turn it back to you and see if we have any questions that have been posed for Barry or myself.
Absolutely. Nope, thanks, Greg and Barry. Indeed, we will open up for questions. For those of you who might have missed at the beginning, if you'd like to ask a question, you can do so using the chat window located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We did have one that popped up just before we got into the Q&A part. They're curious as to how you see the maturing of technology designed specifically for the channels like PRM systems to help channel managers manage a channel more effectively.
I'll start with that, and then I'll toss it back to Barry. So I'd say two things. PRM, very powerful technologies, very important because the channel is all about, when we talk about scalability, repeatability, and a PRM platform provides that. We recommend automate whenever possible. The caveat is, and it's the same caveat that people have found with CRM systems, is just putting one in and trying to adapt or get your channel partners to adapt to the process that the PRM vendor has told you to use is a recipe for failure. I think what you want to do is step back and say, what are our channel management processes? Let's define those, let's document those, and then we'll automate them. Doing it the other way around, just like CRM, your partners won't use it. Barry, anything you'd add to that?
Well, I was just looking to see what, because it's a question we ask in the SPO, in our 2016 SPO, and I should say that we have launched our 2017 World-Class Sales and Service Survey, and so if folks are interested, we absolutely would appreciate them participating in that survey. But I went back to our 2016 SPO, Sales Performance, and to see what percentage of companies have implemented PRM, and 5% said they had implemented, 9% said they were planning it for the coming year. So what does that give us? 14. So over 86% were saying they have not implemented it. For those that have, I would say, I would echo what your comment, and that is, the same. It's not a silver bullet. Everything that's been said about CRM can be said about PRM in terms of user adoption. You have to train people. You have to reinforce, enforce, and actually use the systems. And we have done some other work with that. If folks are interested, maybe I can grab the participant's name and send them a couple of links to other things that we've done around PRM. Great question. Thanks for asking.
And maybe one other thing I'll add in there is that some of the clients we work with want to integrate their field level processes, such as partner planning, with their PRM, and that's really key, so that you're not just you're just not tracking revenue and pipeline. You're tracking partner plan objectives, and how well those are progressing. So I think that's a key thing. Back to you, Sam.
Great, thanks. I think we got time for one more. What major tools support channel management processes?
Can you...
Greg, you want to take a shot at that?
Yeah, can you tell me that, read that question again, Sam?
Yeah, sure. The question was, which major tools support channel management processes?
What major tools support channel management processes? So if I look at our channel field guide, which is all about putting process in place through the 5 stages of channel partner management, there's a variety of tools. So let's think about this. When we are in the first stage, which is identifying, do we need partners? We want certain kinds of market maps to understand what kinds of customers are in a particular territory, what kinds of products do I have, and therefore what kinds of skills. Some tools that we've developed in there are things like partner profiles that you can use to assess partners. If you look in a recruitment stage, some tools might be an ROI calculator to show a partner explicitly what kind of investments they'll need to make, what it will cost them, how much they'll make, and when they expect to be cash flow positive. If we look at enablement stages, we have enablement checklists that talk about not just what all partners need to be, kind of the training all partners need to go through, but who's responsible for it, and what specific training that each unique partner is required. Partners come to you with various gaps, strengths, weaknesses, and so you want to develop tools that allow you to put together customized enablement plans. And lastly, management, things like partner planning, templates, QBR processes, etc.
Yeah, the thing that I would add to this is what you want to do, and I think many of the slides on this deck would be helpful in doing it, is not look for powerful technologies. Look for problems that are worth solving. When you have a problem that is worth solving, there are technologies out there that will help you do it. But one of the things that drives us crazy, and I think it's one of the reasons you see low user adoption and people replacing one system with another, is their solutions going out in search of a problem rather than the other way around. So what I believe you want to do is first identify what are all of the problems, then Pareto them, which ones if solved are going to have the highest payoff. And then here's another tip, get your process straight, then automate. So figure out what is it that is really causing the heartache here. Let's figure out the cause of that, and then based on those things, figure out where's a solution, what solutions best address this, and what are the first steps for doing that. That's the formula. We call it P times C times V times F greater than R. The pain times the cause of the pain times the vision when we have it solved, and first steps greater than resistance to change. Start with what is the pain? What is the problem we're trying to solve here? Not what is the technology solution that's going looking for a problem.
All right, well, fantastic.
And that's all I've got to say about that.
Sums it right up. Well, great, gentlemen. Appreciate your time. For any other additional questions, we'll make sure we get those to Barry and Greg so we can have those answered for you. But that covered pretty much everyone's questions at this point. So, Greg, Barry, thank you very much for offering your time and knowledge with us today. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Appreciate everyone taking the time.
Absolutely. And thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for attending. Please do take a few moments to fill out your post-event survey. We love hearing everyone's feedback and use it for our future events. But that concludes today's webinar. Have a wonderful day.